that's how I'm going to address this red flag. I just need more confidence. And then all of a sudden you do it and like, wait, why is that red flag still there? Well, you didn't take the time to fully audit the situation. Well, why is it uncomfortable? Go back. Like, do I have everything that I need? Do I have all the documentation? Have I practiced the conversation? Do I even have clarity on what this really means?
Welcome back to Life at 10 Tenths, where we inspire you to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose. Got Matt Bonelli, one of my great friends, here with me again today. Back together again, as always. And we have a great topic because we have been on a mission of a week, Matt. Both of us, I think, feel the same way. We have had so many awesome things kind of fall into place this week. And we're both kind of sitting around going, God, that was a good week. It was a good week. It was.
And today's Friday when we're recording this, and it's like, man, and we still have more stuff going on today. And it's like, this is such a full week and a fulfilling week.
Yeah.
Business planning. We had Dan Martell inside the 11 circle. That was incredible. We've had great meetings offline about what we're building behind the scenes too. Some really cool things that we're going to announce as we start heading into 2025. It's just like, it's coming together, and it feels good because of the fulfilling work and helping people thrive, man. And I love doing it with you. So appreciate you.
Well, it's fun to see the machine. Like when I look at like the dream and the vision that I had, it's fun to start to see it come to life. And then to have others, Matt, come back going, what you guys are doing, like, this is so cool. Like makes me go like, okay, we're on the right track. Like there was a little while there when you're starting out, you're kind of going like, does anybody even want what we're doing? Like, but it was so darn new that nobody could really get the full vision yet. And I feel like that started to come to life. So,
yeah.
So as we move forward here, one, guys, if you like what you're hearing today, like and subscribe so we can continue to bring you all this great stuff. Share with your friends if you like what comes out of this. But what I think we want to share and talk about today, in the meeting with Dan Martell, I took pages of notes. Mm-hmm. I have so many notes of different little elements, ways to think about stuff, ways to look at things. And there was a saying that he put out there, which is red flags don't go away. And I wrote this down and I put huge like stars around it. And like, just because I know in my world, over my last couple years of business, over things in my health, over other aspects of my world, there are signs that showed up so early on of like red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. And for so many reasons, we as humans go, okay, I see that, but I can't worry about that right now because I'm working on this. I can't deal with that because I'm focusing on getting to this destination. I've got this goal, which is great to focus on these goals and to go and to push and to get there. But it made me stop and go, what if I would have stopped and addressed the red flag at that moment and gone like, whoa, okay, this has popped up a couple times. I see you're not going away. Let's handle it. Let's get it behind us and let's fix this so we can move in the direction that's going to benefit us the best. And Matt, this got my attention, sir.
Yeah, me too, man. And actually I had a conversation with someone who was on that session yesterday. And I won't use names so that there's anonymity here, but he said like, oh, that was like huge because we just had to let go of somebody, and it felt freeing. Like we thought that this person would go through, and it turned out like we just ignored the red flags, and they don't go down. They are there. And he said it was so nice to hear Dan say that, but I think, and one thing that came out of it for me was we need to also make sure that we're properly identifying red flags so that we can acknowledge what is a red flag and what isn't. And then when it's there, let's handle it, because, it's wishful thinking that it's not going to go away, or that it will go away, but it's not going to go away.
So I want to use my knee. My knee is a prime example here. Like when I've been thinking about all this, like take this outside of business, take this outside of all kinds of stuff. Like, so if we go back to like 2000, oh my gosh, 2004, 2005, maybe around that time, I did the Relay for Life, and me and my silly mind was like, a team, we're going to walk as a team and hand off, and you're going to like just keep somebody on the track the whole time. I'm like, guys, I got this. I'm going the full 24 hours. And people were coming to me going like, how are you training? And how are you working on this? And I was like, I don't need to train. I've been walking my whole life. Why do you need to train? Like, what are we talking? It's just walking. This is the dumbest thing ever. Come on, let's go. Well, at hour 11, my knee fully locked up. And I was laying in a tent, and I had to have my friend Mark Johnson carry me to the car and take me back home to my wife and be like, here he is. He can't get up the stairs on his own. So we got to figure out how to get him up the stairs to the bedroom. And I ruined myself. And I knew I had a knee that would act up a little bit. That was a massive, massive red flag that came up that said, dude, what took you out of this was your knees. You could have kept going. You physically were totally fine. Otherwise, you were doing great. Darn knees took me out. We just did the 12-hour walk, Matt.
Mm-hmm.
My number one issue that I had while I was out there was my knees. And it's funny, like, I'm fairly athletic. I'm fairly fit. I don't carry any extra weight on me. I mean, here I am as a 6 foot tall male that weighs 165 pounds, 160 pounds. Like, I am not like carrying a lot of baggage on me. And at the same point, here I am out there and my knees just start aching and aching. It's like, okay, so now I addressed it. We talked about it on the 12-hour walk. We talked about that I actually addressed this going, dude, fix this. Like, don't stop putting up with this. Like, you need to take care of this. When I heard the red flag for me for health-wise, it was like, dude, this has been giving you red flags forever. Every year that I ran the Beta Breakers down in San Francisco with my family, my knees were the thing where at the very end of it, when my daughter would say, Dad, let's run to the finish line. We can see the finish line. And I would go, you run ahead. I will do my best to keep up with you. And I remember hobbling and just holding myself going like, wouldn't it have been fun to run across that finish line with her? Rather than being like the dad trying to find her in the crowd at the end back there, going like, okay, where is she? As a 10-year-old kid running around a huge crowd in San Francisco, it's like causing me panic. But everything I wanted to do was keep up with her, but my knees were hurting so bad. And I look at this and go, how long do I want to avoid these red flags around my knees, Matt? Like, how long do I want to do this? And recently, I hired a personal trainer for my knees after the 12-hour walk. But that was one for me. It's like, what if I would have handled this a long time ago? Because it's not that I had bad knees. It's that my trainer very nicely pointed out, I don't have glutes. Like, she's like, they don't activate, which part of that makes this not work, which makes your knees hurt right there. And I'm like, I could have fixed this so long ago if I didn't avoid the red flags.
That hits, by the way, the story of the running with your daughter. And I think, this highlights, okay, well, how do you identify what a red flag is, whether it's health or your business, and then understanding like, what is it connected to? Because a lot of times the red flag isn't necessarily the problem. It's showing a problem that exists somewhere else that now this has become the symptom of. And we need to figure out how to eliminate that by solving the underlying problem. Like in your health, in this case, like we need to build up some muscles somewhere else so that we can take care of that joint long-term. In your business, it's like, hey, maybe it could be the wrong hire that's producing a result somewhere in your business that is a symptom that we need to then handle with the hire. Could be a personality trait that is going to then carry somewhere else. It could be a habit, right? And I think a lot of times we just accept red flags as, well, that just must be the way it is. This is just how I feel when I wake up. This is just, what is part of being an adult, part of being a parent, part of being a business owner. And so I think the first step in being able to clearly identify red flags is understand that nothing is the way it should be, quote unquote, meaning like don't accept the norm as what is reasonable.
Yep.
Because a lot of times that can cover up red flags, I think. Particularly when it comes to business. Be like, well, realtors, we just work 24/7. It's just what we do. It's like, no, it is not what we do. If you are losing sleep because you are on your phone at 11 o'clock at night, that is a red flag that something needs to change. It will not go away. So let's address it. And since it is business planning season and people are going through that, like I would say the first step is saying, okay, let me just write out, like just take a notepad and start writing out, what do I think all the red flags really are in my world right now, and get them out of your head so you can start to acknowledge them.
The challenge I think that a lot of people are going to have with this is the challenge that I've had with my knees for years is like, well, that pain only shows up in this moment. Because if you were to come and talk to me, Matt, and say, so Garrett, you talked about, your knee's hurting here when you do these events. And I'd be like, well, yeah, it's one knee. And you would go, Garrett, what knee is it? And I'd be like, I think it's this one. Like, because it doesn't hurt right now. Like 90% of my life, more than that, like my knees don't bother me. It's when I push it to these limits. So when I'm like in this state, my knees feel great. And my knees felt great yesterday and the day before that. And they're going to feel great all week because I'm not pushing myself to that limit. So it's like, well, where does it hurt? I'm not even sure what knee it is. Well, okay, when it hurts in your knees, where does it hurt in your knees? I couldn't tell if it's the inside, the outside, like where it is, because it's not right now. And I think going through like a transaction with a client, there are certain areas in there where the knee pain in your deal may look like this is where it got rough. It always gets rough when I have to talk to them about a buyer's agreement. Like it just gets funky and weird and it's awkward. That's knee pain, by the way.
That's a red flag.
This is uncomfortable when I have to do this. Great, write that down. When we are at the closing table, I sometimes have a closing gift form. I sometimes don't. I feel weird when I don't. And I was expecting my assistant to be able to have that, but sometimes she kind of forgets. And it's like, okay, that's an uncomfortable zone where we don't have consistency. Sometimes my customer service calls happen. Sometimes they don't. Why do they not happen? Well, when they do happen, we feel great and we're rolling. But when they don't happen, like, this came up, this got weird. Well, this always kind of happens on Wednesdays when I'm supposed to make my customer service calls. And sometimes I have rotary and that doesn't work quite right. So I can't do my calls. Well, it's like, okay, that's a red flag. Like you just need to start doing it. But sometimes you won't notice it until you're in the moment going, that's right. That's where my knee's hurting right there under the kneecap on the outside. And it hurts when I do this. Great. Document it. Because that's how you're going to address it. Otherwise, it's just one of those things that's not bothering me right now.
I'm so happy you brought it up in the context of process like that, because I think a lot of people, when they hear red flags, they're going to think personality, which is a thing. Like if you're hiring somebody and you're like, man, I think there's a red flag with this person, like it is a red flag and you should address it. It may not be a red flag to somebody else, but if it is to you, that's important. But when it comes to process, a lot of times we don't address those things. We don't think of those things as red flags. And so then we build this system around it. Like with the knee, it's like, okay, 95% of the time it's not a problem, but also have we developed a pattern that protects us from ever having to go to a place where we would experience it? And what would life be like if we spent 10, 15, 20% more of our life in those spaces that now we only spend 5% because we're protecting this red flag? Same thing with your business. Oh gosh, these buyer agency conversations are a little awkward and like, I don't know what to do about it. Red flag, let's address it. Or red flag, let's ignore it. Now you're just not going to have those conversations, which means we're not going to have as many buyers to work with, which means we're not going to have as much business, which means we're not going to have as much income, which means we're not going to have as much life. It's like, that's what a red flag can turn into. It is a ripple effect that can impact something that is completely unrelated because we protect it. We put pillows around it. And what we need to do is address these things head on and resolve them so that we can eliminate the red flag, not build a system around it that kind of just like keeps it like there, right? So I love the process side, and you're right. We don't know it in the moment. So write it down as you're going through it so that you can see this. And because it's easy to sit down, Garrett, like I'll do this with agents sometimes. I'll say, okay, let's go through your process, and we'll try to go through it. I said, okay, now over the next 2 weeks, as you're going through the process, I want you to document it out, because it's hard to sit down and just think about it and create it. Dan even said that the next level that he's brought his transfer process. So in his book, Buyback Your Time, he talks about the camcorder method. Record what you do so that you can transfer it to somebody else. Now he's saying, have somebody shadow you. That's what he's doing. He's gotten to that point where he just pays somebody to shadow him, to take notes and then download and interpret what's going on, because if someone's watching you, and you can do this with your processes, and they can identify red flags for you. Hey, Garrett, I noticed when you were having this conversation with this client, it seemed a little awkward for you. It seemed a little like we went back and forth a little bit. Oh, cool. Have somebody else identify those red flags, Garrett. That might be very helpful.
Major vulnerability, by the way. And that's where a lot of people go like, I don't want, and he even mentioned it. He's like, most people are like, I don't need somebody like, oh my gosh, whether they actually see what I really do all day long. But it's like those situations, if you're willing to open yourself up to that type of vulnerability, there's an amazing amount of growth that can happen, because it makes you be honest with yourself when you are all of a sudden having to have somebody that's going to follow you and watch you. And then to be able to take criticism from them, or at least take their opinion and be like, I'll take that into consideration. It's not, I hear what you're saying and I'm going to do it differently. That's a different way to look at it. And I appreciate you giving me that feedback. And I'm going to put that down over here, because I think at some point when you find these red flags, Matt, when these things pop up, whether we acknowledge them ourselves, whether somebody else, a family member, I saw somebody post the other day, and he said, and I don't want to call anybody out here, but it was a post that said basically like, this was me back here. This is me now clean and sober. And what got me there is my daughter asked me to stop drinking. And he's like, that's all it took. And it's like, okay, so that's somebody that very vulnerable came to dad and said, Dad, I would like it if you don't drink anymore. And there's all kinds of ways in that vulnerable moment that he could, say, I don't have a problem. Like, hey, this, it's okay. All adults drink, whatever that might be. Or to take that as a red flag and go like, okay, here's somebody I really love that has called me out in this moment. And what do I want to do with this right now? Like, I have a choice that I can make if I want to change paths here and maybe do something that's going to be good for my daughter, good for me, longevity of life, all that type of stuff. Super, super, super powerful, but you need to be open to taking that criticism. So I think now with the red flags, if we start to collect these red flags, so we start to collect them, we start to understand where they are, we document them as they're happening. We don't necessarily need to address them in the moment. And Dan talks about I think it's the productivity loop, I think is what he calls it.
The buyback loop.
Maybe it's the buyback loop, but it's addressing pain, auditing, and then transferring, and then filling that.
The buyback loop. Yep. Audit, transfer, fill.
He kind of alluded to that in the red flag area also, of like, when you address it, like, you're acknowledging the pain, fully audit the situation, and then figure out what is the solution to fix this now. Like, how are we going to make sure that this red flag doesn't show up again? And in coaching, Matt, when we're coaching people one-on-one, that's a lot of times what we are doing for people is going like, look, we see a red flag, or they propose a red flag, and it's like, let's audit this whole situation and figure out why we're experiencing that. And I think it's a powerful place to get into when you start handling it that way.
It's a good point, because a red flag can be clear and it can also be complex. So it could be clear like, oh, cool. Like, I'm interviewing this person. I got a red flag on their personality. I'm just not going to hire them. Cool. Great. Handled that red flag before it became a problem. It also could be like, I have some red flags with this person who I hired. Now I have to figure out like what's really going on. Or like with the knee, like the knee's a red flag, but what's the underlying issue that's really happening behind it? And this does take some work sometimes, but what you don't want to do is put the work off. We do want to manage it head on. And Dan said something cool too. He said, like, I've never been upset when I trusted my gut. Right. And he's like, I've never been upset when I've made a decision that was to eliminate a red flag and say, gosh, you know what? I should have just waited to make that decision longer. And you'll always be comfortable with that decision if you do a little bit of the research and understand, why is this red flag present in my life? Because when it comes to business, we'll say, oh, I'm uncomfortable with doing the buyer agency, coming back to that as an example, and be like, okay, well, I just need more confidence, right? That's how I'm going to address this red flag. I just need more confidence, and I just need to like amp myself up before. And then all of a sudden you do it and like, wait, why is that red flag still there? Well, you didn't take the time to fully audit the situation. Well, why is it uncomfortable? Go back. Like, do I have everything that I need? Do I have all the documentation? Have I practiced the conversation? Do I even have clarity on what this really means?
I was going to say, do I even understand? I think that's the biggest challenge with most people out here is that nobody's even made it clear about what the hell they're supposed to be doing with it. And then it's like, oh, you just got to start doing this. So it's like, well, sweet. Like, it's like saying, go out and change your oil on your car. And you're going like, one, I don't know why I'm doing this. And two, like, I don't even know where to start. Like, what are the pieces? Do I need wrenches? Do I need funnels? Do I need like, what do I need to do this? Do I just let the oil pour on the ground? How do you collect it? Like, I mean, there's so many just kind of unknowns. And I think that's where a lot of people are struggling with something that like that right now. Is like, they're not even truly clear on the moving parts and why and what it's all about.
Well, and that gets into like your skill set, right? And I think with a red flag, there's probably a skill that we need to just figure out for ourselves, whether it is something that we want to improve or just understand better so that we can make a good decision with how we move forward. It's like when people hire people to run their marketing and their social media and stuff, and they haven't even gone and touched it at all, right? Like I've never logged into Instagram, but I'm going to hire somebody to run my Instagram. It's like, why? Like, why would you do that? Have somebody run something that you have no idea what it is in thinking that it's going to work for you because they can go post all the stuff, but you have no idea how to then pull that information and make value out of it. Do a little bit of research to understand it so that you can make a really good decision about how you want to manage whatever it is. So I would look to like Garrett, like what are the things we need to look for? Maybe it is a video. Maybe it's a podcast. Maybe it's a book. Maybe it's somebody, right? For you with the knee, it's like, you know what? I should probably go ask a personal trainer or a physical therapist how I can solve this because I don't know. And now they're like, yeah, here's the solution. Oh, so clear. So who in your world can help you solve this red flag that is present in your life? That's the first place I would go, Garrett.
I would look at my managing brokers if it's business wise. I mean, I would go directly to a managing broker. I'd go directly to a coach. I'd go directly to a community. Like, there's a lot of communities out there where you can get involved in. You can go on Facebook and find realtor groups and post a question in there. There's Reddit out there. You can post questions out there being like, hey, this is what I want to know. There's all types of platforms to learn and grow.
Speaking of groups, I just want to highlight, because it just brought my attention to a post I saw on Facebook in line with what you shared. I don't know these people, but I'm in a group for 75 hard people. If you guys are looking for a 75 hard group, there is an official group with like thousands of people. And a guy posted, he said, I just crashed my truck drunk last night. And it was a highlight for me that I need to get my life together. I've tried 75 hard, 10 times already. This time I'm going to commit to it. And the comments, very supportive, like, hey, this is like a sign for you. Like, and he's like, yeah, I know. And he's like, and people offering help and support and all those things. But for him to publicly post that is a big deal, right? And now I don't know this guy. I don't know if he's going to figure that out. But when you talk about like massive red flags and that are going to be a challenge to solve on our own, and the opportunity for community to come in and support you, because overwhelmingly, I mean, there were a couple of people in there who were kind of unkind of like, dude, like get your shit together. But
anytime you put something like that out to the general population, you better be prepared that there's going to be some hate that's going to come down the pipeline. At the same point, there's a lot of really good people out there.
I have people sharing their story, them being vulnerable. Like, community is but you do have to be ready. You got to be ready for what's coming back on that. And I know we're kind of like deviating a little bit, but I wanted to share that because sometimes there's a red flag that we see that we just aren't comfortable with addressing because we fear it's going to have people judge us. And it might be true. People may judge you, but who cares if it's going to help you move forward, become a better person so that you can impact other people? Like, that's what's on the other side of solving your red flags.
Well, and this is where I love this side of being vulnerable. If you have these red flags, if you have these things showing up in your life, like what I was saying a little bit ago, Matt, is sometimes you might acknowledge a red flag. Sometimes you might need somebody else to point the red flag out also. And this is why having a team of people you trust, people that you are open with your business and your world, can really be helpful. And, we just had two people inside the community that shared their buyer's packets, and all of a sudden they're noticing what they thought was a killer buyer's packet. They're like, oh my gosh, like they had all kinds of red flags that popped up. Like, I'm missing this, I'm missing that. This should be in there. I should be doing this differently. By the way, if you even have a buyer's packet, you're light years ahead of people. But it was interesting to see those moments of being vulnerable and sharing and growing together. And now, I recently, like in this marketplace right now, I've had a lot of coaching clients that'll come up and say, man, I feel like buyers are so sensitive right now. True. We're seeing that across the board. Buyers are very sensitive. They're very touchy. And there are some that are just going, man, deals are falling apart. And that's just the way that it is right now because these buyers are so sensitive. And there's another side that when I ask them, are you having deals fall apart? No, I'm having to take a lot more time on the front end, and I'm having to ask a lot more questions, and I'm having to tie up I'm working harder than I've ever worked to make sure these loose ends are all kind of pulled together. But no, I'm not having any deals fall out. And it's like, okay, so one is, I think it's interesting is like the deals falling out is a red flag. Like that is like a wait, well, that's not the outcome that we wanted. And what can get dangerous is if you have a pool of people you surround yourself with that all go, oh, you have that red flag. Oh, you have that red flag too. Oh, that just must be the way that it is. And all of a sudden we become okay with it because everybody deals with this. Oh, everybody gets knee pain at mile 6. Oh, I thought it was me. Like, I guess that's just what our bodies can handle and what we can do and how this is supposed to happen. I didn't realize you couldn't go beyond that. I wonder how marathon runners do it. They must just push through the pain, I guess.
Like deal with all that cramping and knee pain.
Like, if you are not careful, these red flags and who you surround yourself with, which I know for me, I've had to do a lot of conversations with people going, when they're going, these deals are falling out, me going, I don't believe you. Like, I don't think that that's the way that it has to be. I know people that aren't experiencing it. Let's audit what you're doing and find out where the loopholes are right now, what you're not doing that's opening up that door that can fall apart like that.
Then now the next phase is making the decision. Before we go into talking about this, though, I was just thinking in my head, like, we've said red flag so many times in this podcast episode.
I know
that people are probably going insane, but I'm curious how many times we've actually said it. So if you're on board for this, Garrett, I'm going to create a little game. Okay. So if you can tell us, and we're going to have to go figure out how many times we actually said this. If you can tell us how many times we said red flag in this episode, DM either Garrett or myself on Instagram and just say, hey, red flag and the number. We'll select one person, maybe two people from the people who get the correct number for one free month inside the 11 Circle. Because I was like, we could make a drinking game out of it. That's not appropriate, but we can make a fun game, which actually can be productive. So DM us, tell us how many times we said red flag. Now we got to solve these things and get rid of them, Garrett. And I think that's where once you identify this, you develop the skill set or whatever you need to solve it. It's immediate action to go cure it. If it means you have to let somebody go, don't let it wait. Take immediate action to go solve this thing, because that is standing between you and your ability to move forward. Because as you start to make excuses around something that you now have brought awareness to and have figured out how to resolve, you know the solution. Every minute that you don't take action on that solution, you're training yourself to accept even more red flags in your life and in your business. So the last part, take massive action immediately when you know what the solution is. And that could, whatever it is.
Well, and when you use the assistant or you use the person that you have that you've hired, the interesting thing about that is that you can very easily look at, well, if I'm going to have to handle that red flag, that means I'm going to fire this person way sooner than I was expecting to do that. Now I got to go through the hiring process, and that's a lot. And I got to do this, and we got to do all these pieces. I got to retrain them and all that stuff. But if you look at the long run of the damage that's caused by holding on to someone in your business that is not performing, and you're frustrated and it's tearing your energy down day after day or week after week, the damage is way bigger than the time you're going to spend training somebody new and having somebody that is killer in your business that fits exactly what you needed, doing exactly what you wanted. Now, this might also bring you back to the reason that I have this red flag is because what I really need to address, and I learned it in my audit, is that I'm not training people properly. I am not setting them up with the tools to be successful. It wasn't this person's fault. It's a me fault, my problem. I got to fix this thing. And so this is why it's so important to really sit down and say, what is causing this? As my trainer said, and I'll say it the way she said, you don't have an ass. Like, that's your problem. Like, it's like, this is what is leading you to this situation that you're in right now. And I think that's like, I can easily look at it and go, oh, the problem is somewhere down here in my knees. No. It's actually a totally different part of my body that's causing that knee problem down there. And I think you've got to look at it. You've got to be open to being like, this might be a me problem.
That is a very important thing to highlight too, because particularly if we're hiring people, and Dan even said yesterday, because like his phrase is 80% done by someone else is 100% freaking awesome. And he added yesterday's like, but if that 80% isn't good enough, you need to find another person. And then I add on to that even more. And I know we've had discussions about assistants before. if you keep going through people all the time, maybe it's not a them problem. Maybe it is a you problem. And what you think is the red flag is actually a red flag that's waving on top of your head that you need to look in the mirror to see so you can actually manage that thing. And I've seen that happen a lot of times. People are like, I just can't keep anybody. Good help is hard to find. I'm like, actually, good help is not hard to find if you look for it in the right way and you can attract it, because I see good help all over the place. When I was like, how did you find that person? I don't know. They just appeared in my life. Oh, you had a system to attract them and you trained them appropriately and you created a vision and all these wonderful things that made that work.
I have interviewed really good assistants when I'm interviewing, and I'm saying I'm interviewing, like sometimes I'll be coaching somebody and they'll have me interview their assistant. They'll say, here, can you do my coaching call with my assistant so you guys can get a bigger picture of what's working, what's not. And I will have this very, very, very highly competent person on the other end going, I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm like, oh, this is a disaster waiting to happen. Like this is, you're going to take a great person who doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing. And all of a sudden the agent's frustrated because they're not getting the results that they want. They think they're communicating what they want, or they have this idea of you're just supposed to know because that's your job, like pay attention and you're supposed to know. And then you have this poor person here going, I just want to do better. I want to perform at these levels, but I don't know what to do. And like, this is when you do a full-blown audit, like when you really audit, make sure you don't just look at the outside surroundings to say, why are these results not coming in? Look directly at you two and say, what could I be doing differently today that will make a different result happen here on the other side of this? Me personally, what is my action? You're actually probably, and I hope this comes out right, you're probably way more at fault than you know.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, that's the hardest thing, got me thinking, man, what are the red flags that are sitting on top of my head right now that I need to look into the mirror and address for myself? But man, this is such a good topic. I loved that quote, and it was fun hearing more people say that was one of the major takeaways that they took from that conversation. And look, we've turned it into a whole podcast now and an opportunity for people to get a free month inside our coaching program, the 11 Circle. How cool is that? I saw you freak out a little bit when I was like, hey, we're going to do something here. You're like, what is Matt going to say?
The freak out for me was we are going to have to go tally how many times we said red flag, because red flag was said a lot. And you could say red flag that much, like it starts to add up a lot.
Red flag. It does. But hey, that's cool. And if you guys don't want to go through that process and you're just ready for something in your world, you're like, hey, you know what? I need a great solid program to help me advance and manage red flags in my world. Come join us in the 11 Circle. We actually are just going through, I think by the time this episode comes out, we're probably in the middle or just wrapped up our business planning workshop sessions, which are part of our live coaching that happens every single week inside the 11 Circle on Wednesdays, which is incredible. Just go to lifeat10tenths.com. You can find our program there. You can join up for 7 days for free if you want to just check it out and explore, see the content that's in there, and then decide if it's something for you. Or you can reach out to us. We'd be happy to chat with you about it too. Our whole mission is to inspire you guys to live at the pinnacle of your ability and purpose, and then get out there and execute on that, because we know that that's what's going to have a great impact in the world. And we have a podcast episode coming up too that'll kind of be talking about that. I don't know if that'll be next or the one after that, but it's on the list of things to talk about.
I have to see how it rolls. Well, I just hope as we count our red flags that you have the same red flag count that I have.
Yeah, we should probably run it through two things to make sure that we actually verify. Because we're gonna have somebody be like, well, you said red flag this many times. And we'll be like, oh no, that wasn't right. And they'll be like, no, it was right. And I'll be like,
we will need you to show proof of the one that we missed. So just so you know, okay.
List them all out with the timestamp. It could be like the gumballs in the candy jar, Garrett, or in the gumball machine, and you have to guess how many there are. Could just be, you could just take a random stab at it and you might be right. That actually probably is going to be the best, method of trying to get this figured out for yourself. So anyway, just come on to Instagram, DM us, let us know what the number is. We'll collect all that stuff. And then right after Thanksgiving, we'll make the announcement of who won the free month. We'll let everybody know who got the free month for December and get you rolling in there. And that's what we'll do. It'll be fun. Maybe we'll even expand it somehow as I think more about this.
We'll figure it out. Well, everybody, Amazing. Matt, thank you so much, as always.
Yeah,
Great,
thank
man.
you. And thank you everybody for tuning in. Again, please like, subscribe, share this if you got value out of it. If you think somebody else needs to hear this message, share it with them. We love you guys very, very much. We'll see you on the next episode. Have an awesome one. We'll catch you later.
Bye, everyone.